Welcome to episode 20 of Off the Fields. Happy MLK Day. Today, we are obviously celebrating Martin Luther King and his contributions to, well, we know that Martin Luther King played, he was really into baseball, played a little bit of football, but not like a huge sports enthusiast. Anywho, we are going to be breaking down CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, of course, Paris is going to be joining us here shortly. But CJ Stroud basically, Paris pointed this out to me during the game the other night. A phenomenal game, phenomenal performance. We're going to talk about that. But he received a racist tweet about his father during the game. And somebody tweeted something that was just so inappropriate on so many levels. CJ really doesn't pay attention. He's not really worried about any type of negativity right now, but I just thought that we should talk about this on this special day. It just lets you know that we're still experiencing racism in football, in the NFL right now. So I was just talking about how we're going to be breaking down what CJ Stroud experienced, which you pointed out to me. I thought that was really important for us just to talk about, especially it being like MLK weekend. It just kind of lets you know where we're at, like, when it comes to racism and stuff like that in sports. So CJ Stroud. And then number two, we're going to be talking about Washington Huskies head coach Caleb DeBauer, the way that he just left the players just kind of out there, just kind of, he didn't really give them any type of notice based on the players' reaction, what we saw. And then number three, we're going to be talking about basically the backlash that I think Coach DeBauer, he should have received some type of more backlash, just like Deion Sanders did. And that goes into like that race card in sports, right? We always have to somehow, it comes up because it's still so prevalent. Like, you cannot ignore it. And that's just what it comes down to sometimes. So it comes down to the race. So let's just break down CJ Stroud really quick. First of all, he is now he's the youngest quarterback to win a playoff game against the Browns. They won 45-14 in the AFC wildcard round. So that's really big because, one, CJ Stroud is a Buckeye. Whoop, whoop. But number two, he's Black as well. Number three, he's the youngest. And so he's a stunning rookie. He's breaking records in the NFL. And so for him to make that type of, he's making historical plays, right? And he's doing it so effortlessly. I mean, the Houston Texans haven't had a playoff win since 2019. And it's really nice to see him and DeMeco, the head coach, another Black head coach. It's really nice to see them together really like make history. I mean, it's really awesome for the franchise as well. But CJ Stroud is really standing out in a way that nobody else has stood out in years. Right, Paris, what are your thoughts on CJ Stroud?
I mean, he's having. I think the best way you could put it is, his situation, to God be the glory. I think there's really not much to say other than this is a result of what happens when you put God first in your life in a way that it seemed that CJ Stroud did.
Mm-hmm.
Though he was talented, it was no doubt that many doubted him and his abilities. Many people should not have been the number one overall pick, over Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look today, those same people who said that he isn't an overall pick are now saying that they wish that they picked him for their team. So, again, he has just done a remarkable job. There really isn't anything anyone can say other than what a marvelous, remarkable job he's been, he has done.
Gotta give him his credit. Like, you can't really, if anybody's looking for any type of negative, like, aspect to what he's doing. I mean, it's just like you're just really just hating, you know, it's just, or you're somewhat like racist or something. Like you have to really just not understand what he's really doing to make such comments. So
Agreed.
I mean, what you sent me was like a tweet. This is what we're talking about. This is something that's still a problem, and a lot of football players have been dealing with racial slurs and remarks from fans this season. Okay, but somebody made a tweet of a huge gorilla. This is out of a Pixar movie or whatever it is. It was a tweet of a huge gorilla watching a football game from jail or, you know, behind bars. And the gorilla had on like an orange jumpsuit and everything. And the caption read, CJ Stroud's dad watching from prison. Okay. One, he's about to be like, he's expected to be the NFL's offensive rookie of the year. Okay. Based off his performance alone. But who in their right mind would say something like that during a game where he's performing, he's outperforming the Browns? I mean, the Browns haven't had the best seasons, but I mean, still, he's a rookie. He's new into the league, and he's just now really he's embracing all of the rewards that he could get from this right now, right? And so for somebody to actually make a tweet saying that that's his dad, a gorilla, one, that's super racist. I mean, a gorilla, there are football players, athletes who are already referred to as animals. You know, sometimes in certain analysis of the game, certain people in media have used certain terms that are offensive, okay, in the past. And even the fans, like people in the sports world, have referred to Black athletes as animals. They compared them to animals. And that's when, you know, a lot of athletes also start to feel like, you know, this is like a slave mentality type of system that they have when it comes to the NFL. Because one, let's go back here. Well, not a lot of Black head coaches until recently in the NFL. The NFL was founded in 1920. So it's crazy because we make up at least between 70 to 90% of the NFL when it comes to Black athletes. And yeah, a lot of people, the descriptive words are what remind people of like comparing them to animals, right? And that's racist, that's discriminatory, it's prejudice, it's all of the above. And so when you sent me that, I was just like, wow. I mean, here's an athlete who's openly talking about his relationship with God, and I think he's inspired many other athletes to open up about that as well. And he's just so humble. You know, what athlete would actually deserve? He's not like arrogant. You know, he's not cocky. He's not like an asshole like some athletes are. But he's not like that. He doesn't deserve these types of tweets. So for somebody to actually tweet that about his father, I think that's just absurd. And it's very disrespectful, right? What I know, CJ Stroud said today at a press conference, he said that he's too blessed to be stressed. And that lets you know that he's able to block out these types of comments, these tweets. He may come across them and stuff like that, but he just doesn't let it affect him to that extent. Some athletes would have responded in a different way, don't you think?
Yeah, I possibly would have. Back in my day, I definitely would have had the time to respond to the negative criticism as I had previously. So, you know, hats off to him who was able to, you know, not only shake, you know, these negative, you know, criticisms off, but he's able to move past them and do them in a positive light and positive way.
Yeah, and you know, in a sense, like not bringing it up is also like just shutting it down silently. You know, because like when you don't entertain it, it it just lets you know that you know you're way more mature than people think. Here he is, the youngest quarterback and then, having to deal with that type of nonsense is absurd. Okay, just because he was open enough, and he was open enough to share the fact that, yeah, my dad is in prison. Okay, and that's another thing in our community, right? A lot of black dads, not as much anymore, but a lot of them are in the system. Okay, and then that goes into the, oh, black fathers are not around, yada yada yada, and it's like, for somebody to compare his dad to a gorilla, it's just disrespectful on so many levels. So I think that person is going to get what's coming to them when it's called karma. Um, and I'm just glad that CJ Stroud continues to basically overlook these things. He doesn't give these things energy at all. So kudos to CJ Stroud. I really think he is going to get the offensive rookie of the year in the NFL. I think it's well deserved. It's a perfect match. I don't think anybody else deserves it as much as he does. And especially when he has to deal with, racial remarks during such a positive time in his life and in his career. So kudos to CJ Stroud. I mean, that game was phenomenal. He basically, they keep through for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 touchdowns, 200 and something yards. I mean, that's awesome. So you can't deny what he's doing, because him and Coach DeMeco Ryans are flipping the franchise. Okay. And we'll see how deep they make it in the playoffs. Right now, they're looking pretty good, but a lot of people don't really favor the Texans as a whole. They just favor CJ Stroud and what he's doing, what he's able to do. So I hope they do. You but in the meantime, he needs to keep that too blessed to be stressed attitude, because it's just going to protect him in different ways that he doesn't even know. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is Coach Stroud DeBoer. I mean, this is now Alabama's new head coach. Congrats to him. But the way that he left his Washington Huskies players, you guys, they just played in the championship against Michigan, and that was a challenging game. When you found out that the players reacted the way that they did, Paris, what did you think?
I knew that he was the leading candidate for Alabama, and I also knew that it was going to happen very quickly in a way that the players would not have had the appropriate time to grieve their head coach that just brought them to not only the conference championship, but a win and the Sugar Bowl and to the national championship game. So I think for me, I was shocked in the way that when I found out that the athletes didn't know their head coach was leaving. That's what hurt me the most, was that the went in the process of being Alabama's head coach was the further away he was from telling his team, hey, I'm going to be leaving soon. So that hurt me as a former athlete. Know that was the level of respect that their head coach had for those young boys, and to find out that their coach was leaving on ESPN live on TV, that sucks. So I mean, my heart goes out to them. I was quite shocked that he did what he did and the way that he did. But I am a firm believer that what you put out in this world, you will get back. What you reap, you will get. So he will one day answer, for his, his abrupt departure, and I hope he doesn't. But he just might. So.
Yeah, this is supposedly a South Dakota man through and through. South Dakota. Don't know many people from South Dakota, but it was the cornerback Elijah Jackson's video that revealed that they didn't know, and he said that, quote unquote, we are in the training room. ESPN kicks on. You feel me? They talking about DeBoer finalizing contracts. He laughs. He's like, he really didn't say nothing to nobody. He just left. It's a cold world, bro. So yeah, the way that he left was just very insensitive. You got to think they still may be grieving the loss in the championship game. And then some of these players he's groomed and developed, right? I know I had asked you, like, what did you think Michael Penix Jr. would say? And I know he's declaring for the NFL draft and stuff like that. But the fact that you grow with these players, right? You're with them. I know he was the coach for, what, 2 seasons or something of that nature. But you grow with these players. You grow a relationship. It's supposed to be like, I don't know, maybe their relationship isn't the same like how Harbaugh was with his players. Obviously, right? We saw the amount of like love and the amount of like um, respect in the relationship, right? But when a coach just leaves his players like that without letting them know anything, no type of hint, and then they have to find out on a live aircast on ESPN, it looks really bad on the coach, honestly. And a lot of people, their hearts are going out to the players. And this is the thing, right? South Dakota man, I mean, didn't really know much about him until he made it to the championship game. However, when Coach Prime left the HBCU, right? I mean, a lot of people who reacted were a lot of Black people, obviously, right? But the fact that like he was slandered in the news, in the media, just for him making that decision to leave to go to Colorado, a Power 5 school. I mean, yeah, coaches make their decisions too, and they move with, based on what's best for them and stuff like that. But Coach Prime definitely is not just going to let his boys, just his players, just find out on ESPN. He doesn't roll like that, you know? And I just want to know, why do you think, like, Deion Sanders got slandered in the media for that, but we hear nothing but praises and warm welcomes for Kalen DeBauer.
So I think so two things. I think the media, if anything, in my opinion, I think that they more so slammed Deion Sanders, now that I think about it, for the way he did Colorado's team. When he became a head coach in Colorado, he abruptly dismissed half the roster in a way that was utterly. He did so in a way that he didn't necessarily preach. He preaches about having a close relationship with guys. He preaches about, being a role model for them to go on and continue to be professional young men in the world. But the way he did those half the Colorado young men that were previously on the team, he didn't do it in a professional way. He didn't do it in a way that any father would approve of their son being treated.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Deion really did. I think the media was not happy with the way he did Colorado once he became Colorado's head coach. But when you think about it, the hate that Deion got when he left Jackson State actually came from Black people.
Yeah, it did. It did.
White people. Black people was upset that he left the HBCU for what they said was a white school.
Mm-hmm.
White people ain't talking about Kalen leaving Washington to go to another white school.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, it's been nothing but a warm welcome, like a parade, maybe. I mean, it's just been totally different. And
It's been a parade because Washington isn't too happy about him leaving.
yeah, they're not. They're not.
And I don't know if you heard, but Arizona, the coach from Arizona is now going to become the coach of Washington. But
Mm-hmm.
those Arizona abruptly like this.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the meeting lasted 9 minutes.
Wow.
I saw a clip of those Arizona players leaving the locker room, and it goes back to the ripple effect that when you take one coach from one program, then you have to take another coach from another program, and at the end of the day, a slew of kids are going to get pushed to the side, and one coach who's going to up and leave for that program, those kids aren't going to get another coach of that caliber.
Right.
So Alabama might get a coach, similar to Washington, or Alabama might get a coach, who can carry on Nick Saban's legacy, and then Washington can get Arizona, who might can carry on Kalen's legacy, but will Arizona be able to get a coach that can carry on their former coach's legacy?
Right.
So someone's going to be cut, the short end of the stick, and it's unfortunate that the kids have to be the one to suffer. And then you even know that the transfer portal closed.
See, that's the
So
thing. Like the transfer portal and the NIL thing, right? This has obviously changed the whole landscape of college football. Now, I know Deion Sanders feels that is a part of the big reason why Nick Saban decided to retire, because it's a lot going on. Now, according to Yahoo's Ross Dellinger, Alabama owes the Huskies about $12 million in buyout money, combined with DeBoer's likely I think they're going to give him like $10 million plus salary. And this makes it very expensive, right? It's expensive to move these coaches around like this, especially when a program was struggling or they weren't on top like they normally were, because then you have the NIL on the transfer portal. But these coaches have to understand how that really works, right? And how to use it to their best ability. So it is very true that Washington players just were completely blindsided by his departure. And he accepted the coaching job at Alabama not even 1 week after they lost to Michigan in the college football national playoffs. I mean, in the championship game. So yeah, he's Kalen has been with the Huskies for 2 seasons. He was. And then, I mean, who would pass up the opportunity to fill in Nick Saban's shoes, right? I don't know many coaches that would, even though a lot of people were thinking that Deion Sanders would be the best candidate for that. I don't see Deion going to Alabama. No.
I mean, look what he did with Colorado.
Right. And so this year we should see better Colorado. At first, we thought they were on a roll. That was a good start, and then obviously things are gonna always it's not gonna go undefeated like that. The first year, new coach, new players, everything. It doesn't work that way. But this year it may be different for Colorado, and it's gonna be interesting to see Washington play Michigan again without this head coach that only 2 seasons, but the fact that he was able to get them there the way that he did, Kalen did, I think that's part of the reason why Alabama wanted him. But it's just crazy. I think it says something about his character a little bit with the way that he left, because, Elijah Jackson, the cornerback, he is very adamant that he didn't say nothing to nobody about anything. And as a coach, you're supposed to talk with your players. You're supposed to let them know, give them a heads up, and not embarrass them on ESPN. And it's embarrassing to find out stuff like that, and it is a cold world. And that's why it's good that these players have NIL for that reason alone. It just seems like it's not so much about the team anymore. That's the traditional way of how it used to be as far as like the way of thinking. But now it's like everybody's out for themselves, and it's more about the money and, taking whichever position works in your favor, what's going to benefit you. So obviously Alabama is going to look great on his resume, but we'll see how long he actually lasts at Alabama, because those are big shoes to fill. He's going to have to produce results right out the gate, actually. If not, he's going to feel the wrath of the Roll Tide. So, basically the Washington president, Anna Marie Kelsey, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but she did say that she's disappointed the fact that he chose to leave. So her comments and other players, they're not happy with the way that he handled the situation. So it's not a good look on him. And that's something he's going to have to deal with. Not to say that he actually cares, because I don't think he really does at this point. It's because he's like, I've left that behind me, and that's it. So we'll see how he goes.
And speaking of NIL, this is super random, but I have to say it because I saw it today, or I might have seen it yesterday, but Cam Ward is now backing out of the NFL draft
Oh,
to go
wow.
to Miami.
What?
Yep, he declared for the draft, and Miami offered him a multi-million-dollar contract for his first year with the team next year, and he backed out of the draft, and now he's going to Miami.
Wow.
So NIL huge role.
Yeah. And I mean, we've heard before that like some of these NIL deals are equivalent to what you can make in the NFL or more, because some of them, if you're not starting, you may not be making the top dollar that you could anyway, as far as your contract goes.
Right.
Um, and there's always like rules and stipulations and guaranteed amount and, not guaranteed and stuff like that, so it's tricky, but the NIL stuff is more beneficial to the players. So in this case, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, especially when you have coaches like Kalen DeBauer just dropping a team, just leaving the way that he did. I mean, that was fucked up. I'm sorry to say. I think it really was. But so yeah, it is crazy that with Deion Sanders, it was more of the black people who were slandering his name, and it's that decision. I mean, I'm sure, yeah, business decisions as well. It's not just personal choices when they make these coaching decisions on, deciding which school they want to go be coaches at, or what team they're going to meet with. It's a business decision too. And I think that as black people, we basically we were just excited of the fact that he was in that position, right? And then it's at HBCU, and it's kind of like uplifting the HBCU football landscape. I mean, they have a landscape, but it's not on that large of a scale as we would want or would expect. And there's many reasons for that too. I mean, HBCU games have not always been getting airtime as well. So, now that's changed, obviously. But yeah, I think for us, it was also an emotional standpoint of why people were slandering his name, as opposed to congratulating him and then turning a whole damn football program around at a PWI. That's not easy. And maybe he thought that was more of a challenge. So, but I know that Deion Sanders does not have any desire to go to the NFL and coach. So, like I said, he's not going to be that coach that just drops and leaves his team like that. I think after some time, the Jackson State players, they understood and they were supportive of what he was doing. So, yeah, when it comes to Deion Sanders, a lot of people thought he was a top contender to be a coach at Alabama, but I don't know. Him and Nick Saban's relationship is so like, those are like two greats, and it's like you don't want to step on each other's toes. And Deion wants to have his own legacy. He has a legacy already, but to do it at a PWI, that's even bigger. It's a bigger picture than just the whole HBCU thing. So I get it, but we won't see him in the NFL anytime soon. So we know that. Um, and moving on to the next topic. It's MLK Day. Everybody knows who Martin Luther King Jr. is, and why we celebrate him, obviously. So, interesting enough, um, Martin Luther King Jr. was not like a huge sports enthusiast or anything like that. Now, he played sports when he was younger, of course, but he really didn't start being like at the forefront of sports or being as supportive of it until Jackie Robinson and the whole civil rights movement and stuff like that, which that's when he really became inspired about anything sports related. So, I mean, obviously we've come a long way with Jackie Robinson being breaking the color barrier in baseball and in the Major League of Baseball. So if it weren't for him, we wouldn't be where we're at as far as in the baseball league today. Now, what we are still experiencing today is a lot of racism in sports still. So the NFL is one of the sports organizations that experiences a lot of racism, but I would say the other one is soccer. Um, a lot of Black soccer players overseas experience a lot of racism and racial slurs all the time during games, and it gets very ugly. I know Vinny Jr. is one of them who's always been vocal about it and dealt with it and since last year, even the years before, but just really having to deal with it this year. I mean, let me break down a lot of the key moments that we've experienced racism and discriminatory prejudiceness in sports. So like I know we did an episode where we were talking about Jim Trotter and that whole case where let me see here. Yeah. So that's somebody, Jim Trotter, Black guy in the sports world and in the sports media, filed a retaliation lawsuit against the NFL and NFL media, alleging that his contract was not renewed this year because he repeatedly spoke out about pro football's lack of diversity at the league office, among its coaches, and with its media coverage. Well, we see that quite often. I mean, we have to bring up the race card, even with Malika Andrews, right? And she's considered to be Black, right? But again, it's the way that some people in sports media cover these athletes. I mean, the whole Malika Andrews situation was not received well by us. Okay. Athletes were definitely vocal about the way that it's not even about the way that it's the way that she covers it, right? Like, yeah. The whole Josh Giddey thing, compared to John Morant and how she covers it, how she says certain things. A lot of it is, I mean, we know that as a producer and working in news and stuff like that, a lot of the things are pre-written. She doesn't necessarily write everything that she says, so she's just reading what, is on the teleprompter. But you ad-lib, right? You can ad-lib and you can twist things. You can change the narrative in a way to where it's not offending people, and she's on a huge platform too, so you have to think about that. But
and to be clear, as a reporter, you work with your producers. Your producers don't do 100% of the work, but you do some of the work as well. So it is very much of a team effort. And if Malika wasn't comfortable with saying anything, most definitely there would have been changes in the way that she reports news. So whether she's reading off of a teleprompter or not, she does oversee absolutely everything she reads. And while she might be reading some stuff for the first time on air, she doesn't read them for the first time every single time she's on air.
Right.
So,
that's true.
So she's very much a part of the problem when it comes to her reporting. And again, you don't have these issues with any other reporter as much as you do with her.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's style of reporting is different, and that is her style in which she needs to work on.
Yeah, that's true. And so, I mean, according to a report by ESPN, we're still questioning the credibility of ESPN right now. Okay, not everything is always accurate that they report, but acts of racism in sports has decreased in both the U.S. and internationally over the past year, but it's still very prevalent, right? So recently in the NFL, I know Tyreek Hill was one to receive racial slurs from fans. There's quite a few other NFL players who also continue to receive racial slurs from fans. And it just goes to show that the seriousness is still not quite there yet. Because the fans, I'm not sure, did they actually pass that ban for them to like get penalized if they say the racial slurs? Because you know, this is the thing. The use of the racial slurs in the NFL, yeah, it's American football. People get really emotional about it and stuff like that. But in 2021, at Super Bowl 55, I think, that was when the Inspire Change commercial, NFL ran that Inspire Change commercial, but they didn't include Colin Kaepernick. And that was like the year a lot of things happened with like him taking the knee and the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that. We really saw the division there. And the NFL felt the need to try to overcompensate with the Inspire Us movement, right? It still exists. It still exists. Are we seeing any changes really? No. No. Yeah. I mean, we still only have like not even 5, not even 6 Black head coaches in the NFL.
Right.
Okay. Don't even have 6. Okay. So I mean, in 2021 they had that Inspire Us change commercial, right? They played that during the Super Bowl, but that was a big thing because they didn't involve Colin Kaepernick, and he was the person who was trying to voice these concerns and bring light to the lack of diversity and the lack of even like the certain treatment that they get in the NFL, you know, just bringing attention to that. And they didn't really want to get into that. So let's go back to 2020. The NFL Referees Association called on the NFL to ban players and coaches from using racial slurs and profanities with each other and towards officials, trying to create the environment of more respect and sportsmanship. But that's not really working because they still use racial slurs to this day, and it's very prevalent. So I know that, let me see, some of the most recent moments that have happened when it's involving racism. In May of 2023, Georgia freshman defensive tackle Jamal Jarrett apologized for racist comments he made as the Falcons made the first round selection during the 2023 NFL draft. So this is like just another player. You know, this is not even a coach. This is not an owner. This is just another player. Okay. So you still have that, right? The NFL has a long history of racism. So, I mean, even dating back to 1920s, there were only 2 Black players. And it took years for them to, I mean, they tried to eliminate Black football players completely at one point. But it wasn't until 1946 that a Black player re-entered the NFL, and that's when Kenny Washington signed with the Los Angeles Rams. So, I mean, and then we fast forward to the Colin Kaepernick thing in 2016, where the protest happened, taking a knee, and then, you know, the pandemic, and it was just a lot that's been happening. But look at the time frame in between, right? It takes years for things to really even get attention or for things to have some type of change to happen. So what happened with Kaepernick? He was blackballed. He's still being blackballed, right? He's never gonna. A lot of people say he's never gonna be able to play in the NFL again. And you still think that holds up to this day because of what he did?
Yep.
Yeah. But somebody who would be proud of what he did is Martin Luther King Jr., obviously, for obvious reasons, right? I feel like if MLK was here, I feel like the sports world would be a little bit more different. I feel like he would be more involved. in the sports world and trying to make sure those changes happen. That's somebody who has a lot of power to make those types of changes happen. So, I mean, we're just now really getting like some ownership, some Black ownership in the NFL. And that's like last year, 2023. So, mind you, the NFL started in the 1920s, and now we're in 2023, and we're just now getting some type of Black ownership in the NFL. Shout out to the Las Vegas Raiders for that. A shout out to the Washington Commanders. I mean, it's just, it lets you know we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But obviously, for marketing purposes and for commercial reasons, you know, the NFL, they of course are celebrating today in some shape or way with promos, with signs and marketing and things of that nature. But does it really hold up to their mission statement? I don't know. But I want to read something that Roger Goodell said in regards to, you know, Black people. Quote unquote, he said, "We, the NFL, condemn racism and systematic oppression of Black people. We, the NFL, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier and encourage all to speak out and peacefully protest. We, the NFL, believe Black lives matter. Hashtag inspire change."
I still don't understand why Colin Kaepernick isn't back on the field with this statement. If you're going to make a statement, you know, and you're going to apologize and admit to the voice wasn't heard and it was just Colin Kaepernick, and right, then how is he still not on the field? I'm not saying that, you know, obviously there has to be a team opening, no. But granted, there has been many team openings for Colin Kaepernick to be back on the field. So I how you can make a statement like this and then still have, you know, the poster boy, you know, the poster kid who literally, you know, brought this to the national stage. I don't understand how you condemn him, you know, for making a statement that you are now pushing for. I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, it just lets you know that, you know, the NFL is not, that's not a true statement. It's just not, you know, because you don't have that many Black owners. You don't have that many Black head coaches. You just hired a Black coach for the first time in Patriots franchise history. Okay. So that doesn't apply to the NFL. The NFL allows systematic racism still. I'm sorry, they do, but I think that's just what it is. They've tried to call a ban on players using slurs and offensive language, but what about the fans? Okay, because the fans have a lot to do with it. Like Antonio Brown, he used a racial slur to call out Barstool Sports for double standards on Quinn Ewers and Ja Morant celebrations. So that's another thing. You know, like, where is Antonio Brown right now? Damn near blackballed. Seriously. I mean, he's gone through so many changes mentally and stuff like that. And you just have to know that it does deal with some of the racism that he's experienced in the NFL and on the teams that he's played for. In 2021, Minnesota Vikings running back Alexander Mattison received more than 60 disgustingly disrespectful messages through social media that included racial slurs and encouraged violence. You might as well say somebody probably threatened to lynch him or something. You know, these players get a lot of racial slurs sent to them somehow, some way. Even when they're running out on the field, running through the tunnels. And that's a lot to deal with. And what has the NFL done about that? Not too much. And another moment where, let me see here. When it comes to the NBA, right, in 2014, former Oklahoma State star Marcus Smart shoved a Texas Tech fan, saying the fan called him a racist slur. So if a black athlete decides to act out because you're calling him the N word, I mean, speaking of Michigan, in 2014, a Michigan quarterback, Devin Gardner, detailed the numerous instances of racism that he faced during his time with the Wolverines, being called the N word many times. Michigan has a history of racism big time. That's not the only player that's experienced that word. Ohio State has also had a history of racism too, with Jesse Owens and stuff like that. So there's different there's a history of racism all throughout college football, all through all college sports, especially in women's sports, um, where the racism is still very prevalent. So I feel like MLK would be proud of those athletes who use their voice and take a stand, as
Absolutely.
opposed to the mission statements and you know the effort of like commercials. And I mean, I'm still on that documentary piece that ESPN was supposed to air about racism in sports. But you know what? It's almost like possibly shooting themselves in the foot in a way. So I mean, we still have a long way to go. But there are a lot of us in the sports world who I mean, we are pretty thankful for where we are right now. But we just know that a lot of racism still exists, and the only way to change that is to continue to try to change the narrative, when we're talking about our brothers and sisters on camera, you know, when we have these positions to be on a platform, and to, you speak positivity, speak positive things, not focus on the negative, because a lot of people still just want to focus on the negative. It may be, oh, just presenting the facts, but in what light, and in what sense? There's a way to say things. Um, a lot of soccer players experience racism to the point where it definitely gets violent for them. Um, and that's an international issue as well. So we have a long way to go. I mean, what would you say is something that needs to change in 2024? Because like there's a couple lawsuits going on right now that involve discrimination, racism, the Brian Flores case, the Jim Trotter case. There, those are still happening right now, and they're going to continue into 2024 because we haven't heard any type of conclusion to those cases yet.
Yes.
What do you think really needs to change? Is it the ownership,
You
or
kind of
is
broke up
it,
a little.
what do you think really needs to change? Is it just like us, being owners, having ownership in sports, or is it just, sports media?
I mean, I think there's a lot that needs to change. It really isn't a one fix issue because you can change and have all black owners, but that's not going to stop fans from being racist. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, you had a black president. Did that stop racism? No. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that it's a one fix issue. I just think that ultimately we just have to have a greater amount of support when it comes to black athletes and athletes of color when they are voicing their concerns, issues. And I think that when you can have owners and franchises that do back up their athletes, then it could help um, diminish a lot of the issues that these athletes are facing when it comes to racism.
Yeah, because like just imagine, like, your CD Lamb and Jerry Jones. Obviously, that's Jerry Jones has been accused of racism so many times. You know what I'm saying? We hear leaked conversations all the time about some of the things that they say about these athletes. So, just imagine, you're an athlete and there's you're trying to voice your concern, but all of a sudden, like, you feel like you have to, reduce yourself or just kind of go with the flow. And then that's not how it should be, you know? So hopefully, today's celebration with MLK Day, they shed some type of light on the things that need to be fixed. And I hope that athletes continue to stand in their truth and what they stand for, like Colin Kaepernick. I mean, now he's gonna go down and our civil rights history, for doing what he did. So just imagine if we had more athletes who would do that. He did sacrifice his career, but he's been trying to get back in for years. I mean, he's been apologetic, but I know he's not going to continue to kiss ass, you know? So that is it for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's MLK Day, so it's, a very sensitive day that's near and dear to our hearts, obviously. And, I just feel like if you can't understand that as a sports fan or as an athlete, then you have a lot of growing to do. Because this is now 2024, and athletes and people in sports media like ourselves are going to continue to stand on our truth and continue to try to push for change when it comes to racism. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's how when new content is uploaded and things of that nature. Obviously, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, but definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we will see you guys on Thursday or Friday. We'll let you know. But have a good evening. Bye.